but how it's going to impact them as they get into the workforce. Because that's what we do, right? Is prepare students for the workforce. So I get to introduce Richard Goyette. I'm going to read this because some really cool stuff in here, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Rick Goyette teaches general construction in Providence, Rhode Island. His program is a pre-apprenticeship program for Laborers International Union of North America, where high school students have the opportunity to matriculate directly to work as a laborer after graduation. Rick started his career in the U.S. Army, where he served during peacetime as an enlisted soldier as a field artillery forward observer. Okay, so we were talking about this just a second ago. Just anybody in here know what a forward observer is? A couple people. So I was with 10th Marines. We were an artillery unit. The forward observers are the crazy people who lay between the guns and the enemy. And they say, you know, too close to us, shoot farther, or, you know, not close enough to them, over a click, or whatever, you know. So I would be nice to him when you talk to him. But you know, he was a forward observer, and that is a very interesting job. But after he earned a regular Army nomination to the United States Military Academy at West Point. So he's also smarter than most of us in here. And earning a Bachelor of Science, he served again in the field artillery as an officer. His civilian career started as a business process analyst with a Fortune 500 company and moved into a career in the financial services industry, managing a $1 million profit and loss statement while dabbling in corporate training before moving fully into the construction field. As an early employee with Homes for Our Troops, he managed home building projects for disabled veterans across the United States. Thank you for that. In 2008, Rick founded Emerald Dream Builders, a niche residential construction business focused on providing deep green homes and consulting on commercial ventures. Shortly after, Rick co-hosted a radio show with architect Bill Martin called Green, Better, Best that existed on the bleeding edge of the green building revolution that is now becoming the norm in building codes around the country. His search for what he wanted to be when he grew up ended in 2012. So again, he's further along than I am. When he began teaching construction, given the current movement under paradigm shifts in education and the need to train a new generation of construction professionals, he sees construction education as an existing frontier. So what he's going to talk to us about today is something we hear about all the time, and it's perfect for this venue. Rick is going to talk to us about preparing students for jobs that don't exist yet, because we all know that's really what we're doing. So without further ado, please welcome Rick Goyette.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to set my phone up here because, of course, everything I do has to be recorded. Am I on this mic, or can I step away? Oh, I can step away. Sweet. Right. So today's presentation is 21st century stuff. As you can probably gather from the title of this, I'm not all that formal, or at least in this venue I won't be. You'll probably catch me walking around. I have a pet peeve too, by the way, just so you know. I don't read off the slides. In fact, I teach my students, don't read off the slides. That's like a cardinal sin of a presentation, to read off the slides. However, there's some quotes up there that I'm going to want to I'll actually try out my Richard Nixon impression. Anyone who's interested in, no? Okay. But there's some quotes up there that I'm actually going to have to read off there because they're profound, number one, and I want to make sure you hear them. Everyone's finishing their breakfast right now, you might not be. So here's my credentialization. I made up that word myself. Essentially, one of the things that pervades the job market today and the college market, as I'm sure most of you are aware, is credentialization. Having credentials. We do everything to get credentials. In fact, I'm not going to go that. I could literally stand up here and talk for days. I'm not going to talk about credentialization. There's just like a little jab to credentialization. Whenever someone asks me, what do you do? What's your profession? I say, teacher, builder, philosopher. Sort of in a way to confuse people. Like, why are you asking me this question? Why does it matter? But again, a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from the Military Academy. I am a lead AP. many people know what that is? Is it still relevant? Yeah, okay, cool. I actually thought that was really what I wanted to be when I grew up until I started teaching. I also do OSHA for the union, for LIUNA. This is a really brief and really not that interesting yet. So college enigma. For me, particularly, a few laughs, good, because the rest of the presentation is going to be like this, with the funny picture. When I was graduating from high school, I had an enigma that many students have today. My father was working 2 jobs, and I grew up in a comfortable house. My father was working 2 jobs, and I didn't, as fun as it would have been to go to college and drink away his money, I didn't have a passion for anything. I'd ask my friends, hey, you're going to Worcester Polytech, you're going to Cornell, you're going here. Why are you going there? What are you going to do? I couldn't find one of them to give me an, I really want to do this. This is my passion. In fact, ironically enough, getting back to guidance counselors, I'm going to talk about it in a minute. I had no guidance. I sat down with my guidance counselor and told her I wanted to be an astronaut. Now, it was the 1980s. I had hair down to here, and my wardrobe consisted of rock t-shirts and skater sneakers. So she had a hard time understanding. In fact, after I told her I wanted to be an astronaut, she told me, let's see what we can do to get you into, something else. Maybe you like that car stuff. Why don't you think about becoming a mechanic? I just told you I want to be an astronaut. So I didn't really have a lot of guidance. And the biggest thing is I didn't have a passion for anything. And I couldn't see spending money on something that wasn't driving. My father worked hard for that money. Here's my career. Essentially, I got thank you very much for that introduction. I appreciate that. And despite the fact that I have Hodor up there, I had one job, I did it. If you guys, any Game of Thrones? No? No Game of Thrones? I actually currently have a lot of jobs. In fact, I'm at the point in my career where I have to turn them away. It's interesting to be in a place where people are calling me, hey, you want to do this? Sorry, no, I found what I wanted to do when I grew up. I'm good. Really, no, I'm good. And so, ironically enough, 2 of my classmates are now astronauts. It's actually, the irony is thick with this one. Yeah, it's Drew Morgan on the left, Frank Ruby on the right. I sat next to these guys in classes, and what's funny is I really want to meet my high school guidance counselor, and I met her when I was a freshman at West Point, and I went up to her, she was in the automotive parking lot. I was home for a week on leave. I was like, hey, just want to let you know, go to West Point. And she was like, anyway. Let me tell you something else. I didn't plan to go to West Point. I was chosen. I was handpicked I was a great soldier, and they recognized I had some smarts, and so I was put on that pathway by someone that grabbed me by the scruff and put me on that path. And those of us out there, you guys are those people doing that right now. So don't underestimate your value to the student. Sometimes it's hard when you have, a budget meeting and it's something just crappy, for lack of a better term. You guys are the ones providing this guidance, and it is important and imperative that you continue to do so. All right, that's my teaching philosophy. Essentially, I'm trying to be the guy that I needed when I was in high school. And you don't really know that until I got to the position I'm in. But I'm trying to fulfill a role, a mission that I didn't have someone to fulfill for me when I was in high school. And you can read it. I'm not going to. I have a pet peeve about reading slides. It's going to be really tough for me when it comes to the Richard Nixon impersonation. All right. So the presentation today is about preparing students for the 21st century, particularly jobs that don't exist yet. Now, let me stop and just say, why are we talking about this? What's the big deal? I just want to do. I'm already doing my thing, but there's a lot of diversity in terms of number of professions here today. Like there are. I'm very familiar with Skills USA, and when you go to Skills USA, there's every profession in the universe, every technical profession in the universe. But back to this, we find ourselves in a very tumultuous time. Okay, it's basically a collision of several different things that are going on in our world. Outsourcing, automation, the middle class erosion. It's a big thing, especially for me. Big thing. And the American dream is in jeopardy. If you guys you guys, I don't have to explain these things to you. I'm sure you're seeing them on a daily basis in everything that you do at school. All right, the keynote format. I'm going to actually talk to you today about a lot of trends in education. All right, I had an opportunity to read about 15 books, 16 books over the past year. I actually finished one last week. I'm going to talk through those trends. I'm going to extrapolate them for CTE specifically, because you guys do CTE. It's really hard for me, because I'm a CTE guy. It's hard for me to just get away from some of this stuff because it's much more profound at a bigger level. But I'm going to bring it in. Make sure I don't get off track. If I start to get off track, just throw some of those eggs at me that you have left over on the plate. Okay, don't do that. All right, I'm going to actually talk about some leadership points, and there will also be anecdotal stories and whimsical facts. No presentation that I do would be complete without those two items. All right, my methodology here is I'm going to actually state the problem, and then we're going to go through some economic and some educational backgrounds. I'm going to assume some of you haven't read the 12 books that I read. Some of them are from 2012. Maybe you have read them, but maybe we'll bring them back up again. I'll dig them up and talk to you about how relevant they are today. And then whenever I have a book, I'm going to try and put the title of the book with the authors underneath it, so you know exactly which book I'm talking about. And then I'm going to end with profound thoughts and ideas. Hopefully that should be the bulk of this presentation, profound thoughts. You guys are here for you're here for a good time, right? Like, you're here for the profoundness. All right, it's worth mentioning that June 25th, 2016, I was in a catastrophic car accident. That actually is a picture of the video that was on the news of me being dragged up the hill. I broke 5 vertebrae, 6 ribs, functional lung, and suffered a traumatic brain injury. In fact, I went to the hospital and they said, okay, so everything's normal. After I took all the behavioral tests, they said everything's normal. I just threw my hands up. Oh man, that's terrible. I said, what do you mean? They go, I used to be superhuman, and now I'm just normal. Anyway, but I only bring this up because most of you are probably standing up here. How the hell did this guy get the time to read 14 books, 15 books? Doesn't he work? Yeah, I told you I have 3 jobs, but I was out for an entire year with the injuries, recovering from that. I'm still not 100%. You might see me doing a little bit of this. I'm not doing the Holly Gully. I'm actually trying to straighten up my back. All right, statement of the problem. What is the problem? Wish I knew. All right, among the world's children starting grade school this year, 65% will end up doing jobs that have not been invented yet. Okay, by the way, this was for 2011. These people, to coin a phrase, they're fixing to graduate here in the next few years. Right? Think about that. And to put it into perspective, one of the ways they talk about it is, what if how many people out here are familiar with, I'm a computer guy, I'm a nerd, I'm sorry. If you were to try and explain to somebody in 1955 that they were going to become a database analyst, would that make sense to them? No, it doesn't exist yet. That's kind of what we're talking about in this regard. All right, according to our estimates, about 47% of the total U.S. employment is at risk. This is actually an Oxford University study. I was actually trying to, why are the English studying us? Why don't you study you? Why are you worried about our employment? Well, there's actually a great book by Thomas Friedman, Michael Mandelbaum, called This Used to Be Us. And one of the tenets of that book is that we are the world. We are the world. We provide services to the world, governmental services to the world, that are typically furnished by their own government, ironically enough. So think about this. 47% of the total U.S. employment is at risk. What is it at risk of? It's at risk of no longer being there. Those jobs will no longer exist. So let's talk about the economic. Let's start with the economic understanding of this problem. Is it NAFTA, China, or robots? Interestingly enough, those out there that talk poorly about NAFTA, if you look on the graph on the left-hand side, I think I have a pointer here. Right about here, 1994 is NAFTA. Manufacturing in the United States actually went up after NAFTA occurred. That's just the facts. But it's actually a combination. Is it China? Is China doing it to us? They're stealing all our jobs. We're outsourcing them to China because it's cheaper. Guys, it's a combination of a lot of things. And for the most part, here's one fact that doesn't get out in the media very often. 5 million jobs were lost during the 2008 recession. But when we came out of the recession, guess what those jobs were? They were automated. Automation is the not necessarily the enemy. I need to start, start thinking about this differently. I'm not a Luddite. By the way, Luddite, anyone familiar with the term Luddite? A Luddite is the people during the first Industrial Revolution who resisted the loom. They went into all the towns, again, we're back in England. They went back and broke all the machines because they wanted to keep their jobs, thinking breaking those machines was going to allow them to keep my job. So this is a personal growth for me. I need to stop thinking about this as something bad. Okay, we've been here before. There's a picture of John Keynes. For those of you that study the economics, the Keynesian economics of things, there's a quote up there that continues to come up, and I'm not sure why, because it doesn't necessarily specifically, but I had to put it on there because I joined the club, right? Due to discovery of all means of economizing the use of labor, outrunning the pace in which we can find new uses for labor. He's English, so I did the English accent. That's probably pretty bad. All right, and there's actually an interesting quote in there. I'm not sure if you can read it. But basically, he thought capitalism and technology, his economics had a Luddite undertone to it, is that we're basically advancing too fast. In 1933, we were advancing too fast. It's okay, John, it's okay. He's obviously gone now. But we've been here before. This is not a new problem. This is definitely not a new problem. All right, does anyone here farm? No. Oh, cool. There's one. In 1800 America, 80% of the population had a job that was agriculture related. Today, only 5%. So you guys raise your hand. Big ups to you. You're one of the 5%ers. Wait, that's totally different terminology. So 5% of it. So we've been here before. Obviously, we went from an agricultural society to an industrial society, and depending on where you read, we've done that more than once. So we've been here before. It's not a new problem. Okay. If you read the book, What to Do When Robots Do Everything, they'll actually say this is the fourth industrial revolution, which made me scratch my head because I'm thinking, I've never heard of. Anyway, historians disagree, but these guys are pretty spot on. They have the first three revolutions as the loom, steam engines, and then the assembly line. If we weren't, I can't be in Michigan. By the way, I have lots of friends from Michigan. Let me show you where they're from. Bad Michigan joke? Okay, sorry about that. I already used that guy joke already this morning. You guys promised to laugh again. So I can't be in Michigan, not talk about Henry Ford and the assembly line and all that. All right, so this is the fourth industrial revolution where machines seem to think, or they have what they call, these gentlemen talk about as systems of intelligence. Right now, you can't program a machine to think, but you can program it to learn. So that actually is why it seems to think. That's actually a good book too if you're looking for something to understand where we are right now. Now that you've got the economic background from my previous slide, what to do when machines do everything. It's a really interesting. I promise I really wanted to talk all about it, but I held back and hold it back. It's tough. I'm a nerd. All right. Here's the irony. Here's the irony of the past three industrial revolutions, okay, is that basically unskilled workers, in addition to the people who invented and basically funded it, the unskilled worker benefited the most. So this artisan used to make this beautiful cloth until someone invented the loom, and now people who don't know anything about cloth can just go in and run a machine and make cloth. So unskilled workers benefited greatly. This is not so for our fourth industrial revolution. People who are at the unskilled jobs are most likely to be automated. Those are the jobs that are most likely to be automated, unfortunately. All right, now here's an actual step in everything I do, I always try and find a counter argument. There was an article in The Economist in 2012 that says, oh no, I don't think they're English, sorry, I did the accent. Manufacturing will actually start coming back to the United States. Some of this is actually true. There's actually a lot of validation to this, but this is a 2012 article. I can't imagine, they're saying it's going to happen by 2020. I haven't seen 20 to 55 million a year, given the fact that I live in, actually my town, where I grew up in Kentucky, Rhode Island. That's where the Industrial Revolution started. Don't let the history books fool you, started in Kentucky, Rhode Island. Anyway, I don't see a lot of this coming back yet. But this was supposedly supposed to happen. So when you talk about predictions, obviously take them with a grain of salt. These guys, first of all, I like Thomas Friedman, if you're familiar with his work. He wrote a book called Hot, Flat, and Crowded. It was the impetus behind me forcing myself into the green world in 2008, 2009-ish, somewhere around there. He had some predictions in that book that actually haven't come true. The premise of the book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded, was, we need to start leading the world in green technology, otherwise we'll be buying it from other countries. That was the premise. And interestingly enough, this is going to be the new paradigm, it's going to be the new foundation of economic shift. I think robots are going to be, so I actually, for the first time, are seeing something different, but this is from the book, these quotes are from the book, This Used to Be Us. All right? In a world in which individual creativity is becoming ever more important, America supports individual achievement and celebrates the quirky. This is why these guys are saying, look, it's okay, we're going to get through this one. Not only are we going to get through it, we're going to be awesome for it. And obviously the bottom one, the other reason for optimism about America's future, I just used that Northeast accent, huh? Sorry, I apologize for that. Over the course of history, the United States never failed to meet. We've never failed to meet our major challenges. So this is why there's optimism here. So some of the stuff I'm talking about, don't get sad, don't start slumping in your chair. Oh man, we're doomed. No, we're not doomed. We're going to get through it. Let's talk about an educational understanding. This is one of the books where I think some of the people in the room have already read. The Tony Wagner, Ted Dintersmith. Anyone read those books? Tony Wagner's an awesome guy. I wish I could hang out with him, drink some beers. All right, educational model for America is essentially left over from 1893. 1840s, this gentleman by the name of Horace Mann, he went over to Prussia, took a look at their educational system and brought it back to the United States. And then in 1893, the Committee of 10, which essentially was put together to be, essentially what we know today as the Board of Education, they got together and said, let's prepare for the agricultural industrial revolution. So we're going to change our economy from agricultural to industrial. What do we have today? There's been no changes since 1893, folks. The industrial model of education. Yeah, there's Henry right there. All right, so I'm in Detroit with Henry. I thought I'd get a round of applause out of that one. It's not. All right. It teaches repetitive tasks. Essentially, this whole school educational model was built to have students go from the field to the factory, right? Its memorization is the backbone. And one of the things I struggled with, but I now accept it as it's okay, is that we don't teach things that can be looked up. I got into a Facebook argument a couple weeks ago with someone who posted a video about, oh, look at this. These kids don't know geography. Watch, I'm going to test them on this geography, and I bet you they're not going to know everything. And I essentially just responded to the argument. What do they need to know, memorize where countries are, unless you're invading them? That's different. If you're military, that's a different story. We shouldn't be invading anybody, I'm just kidding. But why should you need to know what geography is when you can bring it up on a computer and look at Google Maps will show you any place in the world. Why memorize it? Honestly, if you're any kid nowadays, and I've actually seen this happen, when you start talking about something, oh, what is that here? Well, let me look, and then just open up one of the iPads I have in my classroom and start looking at the geography. You don't need to memorize. So that's just a facet of it. You don't need to memorize things that you can look up. And given the amount of information that's available compared to when I was in high school, only a few years ago, not that old. Here's the thing too, subjects are taught in silos, which in the technical world, that's tough to do now, because there are so many facets of academia that combine into, I teach kids to pick things up and put them down. There's not really a lot of academics in that. It was a little joke. But there's so many facets of academia involved in some of the things that we're teaching. How can you teach an electronics course without talking about electricity, without talking about some of the physics involved, unless you can look it up? All right, the birth of CTEs, Richard Nixon. If any of you have seen my YouTube video, this is actually do a much better job. Interestingly enough, the video that I did on YouTube, the Trends in CTE for 2015, was actually for a college class. And then I dropped the mic, I sort of dropped the mic on it. What I did was, he said, okay, you have to do a 20-minute presentation. So I made a 20-minute video. Then I went up to the front of the room, I set the video up, and I went back and sat down. And the video did the entire presentation for me. That's kind of a trend. Everything's moving to the electronic. But back to Richard Nixon, the birth of CTE in the 1960s. All right? This is where I'm not going to do my, all right, I should. The problem summarized by the Nixon administration, the youth could not see the relevance of what they were doing. They were resulting in it resulted in disenchantment, rebellion. What's that last word? Delinquency. Delinquency. There we go. Sorry, I never pictured this to be. I could come out there. Come out there with you guys. Anyway, I don't need to read that. Essentially, Nixon was saying is the reason that we have these bad people in schools. There's no relevance. They're delinquent. He thought CTE was going to change all that. It was going to save the world because kids could actually have relevance in their education. Did CTE save us? No, I don't think CTE saved us as much. But one of the questions I asked myself during this investigation was, well, if we had all that rebellion and delinquency in the 60s, did CTE save us? Why did we have some of the same problems now? Our students are becoming too smart, at least in the high school area. They're like, this isn't relevant. When am I ever going to see this again? Why are we learning chemistry? All right, so did CTE save us? Actually, I think a lot of it was, at least for me, we had Cold War parents that were, they used to drill underneath the desk, and they actually brought us back, no, school is important, school is important, school is important. Whereas nowadays, when you think about it, I have students, now I teach in a very economically depressed community, so their parents don't even believe in the education system, so it's tougher when you don't even have, can I blame them? No, the education system hasn't done anything for them. They're struggling just like, a lot of people are here in the United States, and so they just teach the kids. I think this is how education started. Back in the cave people days, you taught your kids how to survive. Well, if education doesn't help them survive, and it's a trend. It's not necessarily a positive one, but it is a trend. And then there's also Rocky. Thanks, Rocky. Just kidding. Rocky. This is another thing I was just thinking about on the side. Entertainment. Think about entertainment and the increases in entertainment from the 80s, 90s until today. Entertainment has become a huge part of our lives to the point where we don't even focus on. Let's not even focus on what I'm going to do when I grow up. Just watch this movie. Just check out. Hey, can I get your Netflix login? Anyway. All right. Salman Khan. Anyone familiar with Salman Khan? He's the gentleman who created the Khan Academy. And although a gentleman I sat with for breakfast actually spoke about how a lot of their students they have degrees, they're in their 30s, which is an interesting phenomenon that I haven't really. It's a thing I haven't really thought about. Adult education. A lot of what I have to deal with, when you give a guy a hammer, everything looks like a nail. A lot of what I deal with or try and think about and consider is college relevance for high school kids because I teach high school. All right, on the one hand, our society now views a college education as a gateway to employment. On the other hand, academia has tended to maintain a bias against the vocational. Ain't that the truth? Clearly, our universities are still wrestling with the ancient but false dichotomy between the abstract and the actual practical, between wisdom and skill. Why should it prove so difficult to design a school which would teach wisdom through skill? That's the problem and the opportunity that we face. And I read this book. This is actually one of the most recent books I read, although it's from 2012. This guy, Khan Academy is now what every school is trying to get their high school students to. This is how you're going to get smart. This is how you're going to get a great job. This is how you're going to do great things. It's the Khan Academy. It's actually a really cool paradigm. This gentleman started Khan Academy by tutoring his niece. Okay, he made YouTube videos on how to do math, and this is becoming the new paradigm for education because the students have the ability to take their own. They can own it. They sit down with the Khan Academy and learn all about it. But it's bigger. Look at what he's saying here. We have the opportunity, I say we, I'm still in the high school, but we have an opportunity here to teach students that vocation isn't necessarily a bad word. It's not a bad word. In fact, you can get wise. You can learn, you can become wise through a trade. It's a conversation that I struggle with my students because they all come in and the first thing they do, they sit down and I'll say, all right, how many of you go to college? And all of them raise their hand. It's a societal thing. Now, college isn't necessarily bad, but you got to understand, when I say college, they don't mean technical schools. They don't mean they're going to learn a trade. Which I'm wondering, why you're in my class? I'm trying to produce laborers. Anyway, it's a conundrum and a dilemma that we have. And I don't necessarily have an overarching solution here, except for if you read this and take it away and say, you know what? I'm gonna make this my own personal agenda to make sure people understand. Anyone here from marketing? Any marketing people? Yeah. There's definitely an opportunity here to make vocational education no longer have that stigma. All right, if you read Most Likely to Succeed, this is another new paradigm in education. It's about changing the way we educate our students. We get off of the industrial model of education. And they basically say, okay, the school model that we have now, and all the educational reform that's happened over the past 50 years, is very much like having a horse-drawn carriage and trying to soup it up to do 200 miles an hour. It's not possible. You can only bolt on so many things to the horse-drawn carriage. You're still only going to get 1 horsepower. All right? Another thing, if you look at what are they saying, what's the word on the street? Only 11% of business leaders think colleges satisfactorily prepare their students for success in the workplace. To which I want to say to the businesses, well, you know, if you're trying to look at our output, we need to look at the raw materials. And there's so many things I do in my job every day that it's necessary. I'm a parent to some of these kids. I'm a role model to a lot of the people who never had a male role model in their life. That's part of what brings me the job satisfaction. That's why I said I found what I wanted to be when I grow up. They don't understand the raw materials that you're getting here. They only understand the output. Okay, and without getting long into the reasoning and the societal issues behind that, I could, actually. It's a pretty good conversation. It comes up a lot, right? One of the things that most industry doesn't understand is poverty. All right, they don't understand poverty. And here's an interesting thing for you. One of the books I read this summer, most of them were about education, was about lessons from Finland. Finland is being, for the past 10 years, has been praised as the country leading the educational charge. Finland. Finland has only about 2% of their students living in poverty versus 22% in the United States. So when you look at, okay, man, great, they probably have an awesome thing going on. Think about some of the underlying reasons. Oh wait, the UK came to again, once again, they come to they're going to save the day, right? No. Right, 2014 initiative that creates the UTC, the University Technical College, which is, obviously focused on putting kids in the trades, right? Starts at age 14, it's highly focused on a specific trade, and has a reasoning for it. We have businesses that are ready to take these students right into the workplace. 2017 update, they just closed their 7th one. So again, it isn't necessarily just about putting kids into places that are relevant. Going back to Richard Nixon, who had the same idea. It's about revamping our education so that people understand you can't train, you can't connect the dots moving forward. Much like I could never have connected the dots, or I'm going to join the Army, I'm going to do well, I'm going to go to West Point. I could have never predicted that. I just went to go, I don't want to say find myself, but I wanted to find my passion. And the Army just seemed like a cool place to do it, and they were going to give me $17,000 for college. Right, meanwhile, back in the United States, those of you that don't know, that's Betsy DeVos on the left-hand side, and that's Bernie Sanders on the right. Okay? Some of the methodologies for the education system right now they're not that awesome. You have on the left-hand side with Betsy DeVos, sorry, I pressed it too soon. Betsy, the Republican format is, we should let the market decide. Put our kids, give them vouchers and let the parents choose. And of course, Bernie wants to just save every child, which is fine too. But nobody is actually addressing the thing. If you go on, and you know what, you probably haven't figured out which side I stand on yet, that's good. I'm that liberal teacher your mom warned you about, but yeah, I just confessed. Anyway, if you look at, nobody's actually coming out and saying exactly how are we going to reform education. They want to say we're going to save the world. We're going to love the kids. We're going to give them all a hug. And then on the other side, it's like we're going to let the businesses sort it out because if they don't produce a good product, they won't earn any money. Neither of those are solutions. They don't address where we are and how to get there. In fact, in the book "This Used to Be Us," they actually posit that the number one thing I picked up a book and said, you know what, this one's not going to be about education. I'll take a break and just. Number one thing they need to bring back the formula for American success, education. Another book on education. It was actually motivating to read. Because the number one thing that there was actually another quote in the book, the Battle of Waterloo. Of course, you guys are like, yeah, he's from West Point, he studies battles. No, I got this from this book. The Battle at Waterloo, they said it was won in the back rooms of this elite school. That was what the general bragged about, was that battle was won, and they actually take that quote and they turn it into, the battle for America is going to be won in the public schools. So I can tell you that, farming them out to the highest bidder is not going to be a solution for education, nor is giving everybody hugs. We have to actually have some real focus on this if we're ever going to solve the problem. Although, we'd like the hugs better than the market economy and farming out education. All right, Salman Khan, we're back to Salman Khan. With the world becoming more and more complex, true democracy, not to mention peace of mind, is at risk if average folks couldn't understand what was happening and why. I think we saw this a little bit. This is from 2012, but it hit you right in the face over the past 2 years, has it not? If people can't understand what's going on and make logical deductions, our democracy is at risk. So, again, it's up to us, educators, to help students understand. So I get into the interesting thing about me is that I have the CTE versus academia arguments. I get involved in them, mostly because I like to tell the academians I could teach your class. It wouldn't be hard. Really, it wouldn't, except for the French. I don't speak French, so it would be hard to teach that latest course. But for the most part, this isn't going to happen alone. We can't do this without them, and they can't do it without us. It has to be a partnership. And we have to get back to what's important. I think we should be teaching philosophy. I know that's hard. Like I said, you'd think I look like this all the time. I don't. I usually have Carhartt bibs on, and boots all day long. In fact, it was hard for me to come here. I didn't even have like casual clothes. I only had the suit or I look like I'm going to the gym. Anyway, it's our responsibility. I take it upon myself to make sure, and I try not to. I've already told you. I've admitted I'm that liberal teacher that your mother warned you about. I try not to let my liberal motivations come through in my speech to the kids. Because I'm not trying to tell them this is the right thing. I want them to decide for themselves. I want them to be able to understand what's going on. And of course, you obviously know I came from one of the most conservative places in the world. A very conservative pedigree for myself. Teaching in the inner city has had a lot of impact on my philosophy and my outlook on life. And it's just like we need to teach our kids. We need to look at all the information, not necessarily all the data. You're probably sick of hearing that. Look at the data. Look at the data. Look at the data. No! Anyway, Salman Khan, I don't actually agree with everything Salman Khan has to say, but I do necessarily 100% agree with that. Okay. Oh, another Salman Khan. Alarmist rhetoric aside, the United States is not about to lose its primacy because students in Estonia are better at factoring polynomials. So all the talk we hear about, America's on a decline, where, democracy only ever lasts 200 years. That's another one you hear quite often. We have the ability, and you know what? This is a great place to be. Even given our challenges, education, economic, let's talk about profound ideas. What's going to move the needle? Tony Wagner. I love Tony Wagner. He's the guy he wrote those 3 books. If you're interested in taking down any books to read, Creating Innovators. You notice there's a trend in innovation, the term innovation. That's a great book, Creating Innovators. Very, 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 very widely accepted. And they global. This is actually a letter from Tony Wagner to business leaders coming down off. This is a letter from Tony to the business leaders. For years, it has been about holding teachers, parents, and students more accountable. Now it's your turn to shoulder some of the responsibility for radically improving our education system. Without your intervention, your business and the American economy will be in jeopardy. He's like, yo, real talk. Real talk. Business leaders, real talk. There it is. He's trying to tell everyone, wake up. If this is only going to come, it's only going to come from the market. All right, now this is the book I go back to. This used to be us. Sorry about that. Walking in front of the speaker. Take a look at this. They're trying to say that updating and renovating America's formula for success, this is one of the underlying themes of the book, is that we need to update and reinvent ourselves. And there are 5 pillars that are necessary for American success: education, infrastructure, going back to that. I can't get rid of that Northeast accent. No matter how educated I get, it keeps coming back. Immigration, research and development, and regulation. I stole that picture off the internet. Don't tell anyone I did. All right. They actually try and say America right now is a lot like IBM. All right. If you wanted to use a business to define the way we are right now, all right. If a company can be used, it would be IBM. They're over 100 years old, and America's history is much like IBM. Okay, they dominated the market in the 60s into the 70s with the mainframe. They also invented this thing you call the PC. But they invested too long in mainframes, and it almost destroyed Big Blue. They invested too long in what they knew. They got complacent. It's okay. Obviously, as a comparison here, our complacency with education is, no, we've been doing this for 100 years. It's okay. This industrial model of education, where we just teach kids to memorize, no. Now in 2017, IBM is back as a captain of industry only because it's actually doing things. Right now, one of the things you don't know about me, I said I've made a lot of jobs. I work at H&R Block. I've done taxes for 15 years. I can't stop. Another confession. And we just recently introduced last year Watson. He's like, Watson is actually, we're going to connect your tax return to IBM, and he's going to give you some ideas. This isn't an H&R Block commercial. My point is, it's just another example of how the world is changing. You never thought IBM would be doing analysis versus actually producing a big computer. America needs to follow the example set by IBM. That's what the end of the book was for This Used to Be Us. And how did the IBM lose sight of the world it invented? They asked this of the CEO then. His name was Sam Palmisano. And he basically said, you get into this place where you're arguing amongst yourselves all the time, and you miss the big turn. They invented the PC, but they didn't realize that it's only going to be a niche product. It's not going to become a new platform. That was the downfall of IBM. And one of the things they've changed, they've changed themselves so that they constantly look at themselves and see, this is a pro tip all of you, constantly look at yourselves and see if you need to reevaluate what you're doing. Otherwise, you could be, hopefully like IBM, you'd have to make a huge comeback, it's costly, or you could be, it took them 20 years to get back at the leading edge. All right, America, they're trying to say America's like IBM, is that this is the place, we founded the American dream, clearly. We've made it the land of opportunity. It's a legal haven for great ideas. It's get protected by our copyright, patent laws. This is a great place to be. They actually, in that book, they talk about how, don't get down. There's no other place in America. If you were to design a country for innovation and creativity and opportunity, it would look a lot like America does. Except we need to re-examine ourselves again and take a look at the formula for success and revamp it. Update the formula. We've been really good at analyzing the circumstances, making big political changes, which is where we're kind of struggling right now. It's very difficult to pick up a newspaper article where it's actually, maybe the past 2 days it's possible, but it's very difficult to pick up a paper and see people having an adult conversation. Usually it's just, that's an actual technical term. Technical. All right, and then just so you know, when you talk about immigration, because when you use the term immigration, people they take their sides. They pull out their card. I'm this card. Listen, just so you know, it's another Facebook article. I don't unfriend people that think the same way I do. I just try to make them look silly. And someone posted something on my Facebook feed about, immigration's costing us $20 million a year to educate people who are from another, they're illegal aliens. So then I posted this, of course. Immigrants are responsible for founding 51% of the companies in the United States today worth over $1 billion. It's not up there, but what that equates to is each one of those immigrants actually created 736 jobs themselves. They are personally responsible for 700. So one of the things they talk about in the book, and they're not either, they try not to choose sides either. If you read this book, you can never really know whether are they conservatives or they liberals, because that's the mindset America's in right now. I need to know which team you're on. I need to know which team you're on. Anyway, think about that. When they talk about education reform, they're not talking about how do we make the 12 million people that are here illegally suddenly legal, or how do we send them home. They're talking specifically about how to make it easy for people to come here with their ideas and create the next generation of wonder. It's a really interesting thing. So the reason I put that up there is I want all of you guys to think about the immigration debate differently next time when you hear it. All right. Department of Labor apprenticeship model. This is kind of cool because I was actually talking to a couple people before this about this is actually a huge trend. This is a huge trend. Although, honestly, there are struggles both on the community college side and the business side. The business doesn't want to commit any dollars, and the community college is like, oh, we used to do this with no money. Show me the money, Jerry. It's Jerry Maguire. Okay, sorry, the entertainment thing pushes me. So I was going to put Jerry Maguire picture here, but I don't want to muddle the importance of this picture, this model. And this comes from the Department of Labor. It's not like an idea that I read in a book, theoretical. This is actually happening right now. This is actually happening right now. This is what they expect. So those of you out there, I want to talk about pathways. This is just one pathway that can be created. Pathways. If you're going to market a program, have a job and a result on the other end. This is not easy. It's not easy. Market a program based on what the opportunity is, not necessarily how cool it looks to handle a wrench or digging a hole or having the mask on in surgery. For those of you out there in the medical field, mask. Who's having a mask on in surgery? Is he talking about Hannibal Lecter? No. Talking about people working in a surgical capacity. Think about this. If you can develop a program where you get students in, whether they're 30 or they're coming in from a high school, and they're going to pay, and then you get support from the business community where they actually can interview. I mean, listen, guaranteed jobs are nowhere. Nobody has a guarantee, but students right now are looking at the opportunity. They want to know there's an opportunity, because I got to tell you, it's just like regular college. If they don't know, they don't have a passion yet, they're looking for it, they're willing to spend money for it. I truly believe that they're willing to spend money for it, but they want to see the end. Where are we going? Where are we going with this? Okay, and this is one of the interesting trends. And going back to IBM, there's a huge underlying trend of IBM. How many people here have heard of the PTech program? PTech, anyone? PTech, cool. I'm bringing something that's pretty. Either that, or all those people are like, yeah, we left. They left. They know about PTech, but they left. So PTech is Pathways in Technology, Early College, High School. I have this program in my school. In full disclosure, they took 7 of my seats. So instead of creating this program, creating capacity, okay, that's the only negative side. It's about me. It's not about me. All right, they took 7 of my seats, but it's an awesome opportunity. What it does essentially is the kids actually walk away with an associate's degree after 5 years. All right, and it started in 2011, and it's heavily funded by IBM, and it's in conjunction with community colleges. So of those of you out there doing the technical stuff, this is an opportunity to bring in a program where kids they don't necessarily have job-specific placement, but you can work on that too. But there's funding, there's money. Has anyone tried this program? No? Here's the cool thing about it. Right now, it started in New York City, and one of their big pushes was to diversify the tech world. There's not a lot of diversity in the tech world. And they're trying to, and IBM specifically is putting their money where their mouth is. Now they could, honestly, they could. IBM has it like this. They could actually buy lobbyists to completely revamp the educational system. If anyone's here from IBM, you want to do that, let me know. Give me a call. But they're doing something small time, and it's not really that small. They're doing it $200,000 at a time. They've spent millions of dollars on this program already. It's diversifying the tech field. Kids actually are going to have college credits when they're out. And oh, by the way, one of the conversations I had before this, if a kid gets community college credit from your school, and they have to either need to change jobs in the future or they want additional skills, where do you think they're going to go? They're going to come see you, which is pretty cool. All right, this is another Department of Labor apprenticeship model. It includes, I know that I'm safe in saying that, the labor organizations down the bottom. Guys, I actually do this right now, for those of you in the trades, I actually do this right now with LIUNA. And there's no reason you can't do my program in a community college. Get involved with this, and it's actually already happening. It's another conversation. I felt like, oh man, they already do this? I'm trying to tell them they should be doing it. It's an opportunity, either way. Obviously, you guys heavily in the automotive industry here. By the way, interesting, never mind, I was going to tell you a story about General Motors. One that came up in one of the books. Probably a lot of General Motors fans here. I'm a Ford guy. So. All right, this model right here is important because you could be doing it. What does it entail? It entails, oh yeah, I couldn't get away without talking about my program. My students get 1,000 hours of apprenticeship, 32 credits at a community college, a 10% increase in pay, and 40% of the students, based on a recommendation by yours truly, get offered a job right after graduation. There's no reason why you can't be doing this in community college. And when you want to talk about a community partner, these guys they have money. Not LIUNA specifically, but they do have money. But my point is the trades have money to invest in your program, to assist in training, to provide, actual certifications for your program. And as long as you're willing to, work with these kids, and think about this. There's no reason this can't be done at a community college. And if you think I'm trying to tell you to do something that I haven't done myself, I was the one that went to them, because the guy that hired me got fired because they didn't hire somebody who was a laborer, ironically enough. I went to them and said, no, I'm your guy, seriously. This happened as a result of me putting it together. So if I could put it together, obviously these people are already entrenched in education, could do it a lot more easily than me. Seriously, I'm a guy who, without understanding the education world, all I knew was corporate America, the military, and the nonprofit world. I didn't know anything about education, and I got it done. You can do it too. In fact, I would go on a limb and say if you contacted the local LIUNA training facility, I didn't look it up, but you could look it up, and ask them what programs they'd like to put in place so that you could put a free apprenticeship program in your school. I bet you'd work out. All right, as a point of comparison, that's Michelle Obama, by the way, doing a keel laying in Quonset, Rhode Island for the USS Illinois. I know we're not in Chicago, but either way, it's a welding school. One of my students is spending $60,000 on a welding program with no guarantee of a job, and there's no trade or union support as part of this, but he could get a job making boats at Electric Boat. Could. So there's no reason why. Think about this, with the trade union where there's like a guarantee of an interview, $60,000 is not a cheap amount of money for a certification program either. I have one student doing it, that's where I got the information from. As a point of comparison with somebody who's going through, if you partner with the IBEW has their own training, but there's no reason why we can't do pre-apprenticeship with them. I say we, I mean you. Yeah, just making sure All right, let's talk about some more trending skills. All right, obviously, this is another book by Tony Wagner, Creating Innovators. Here are the survival skills. These are why am I mentioning this? Because are you going to create a whole program about innovation? No. But these are things you should be baking into your cake, into your student cake when they graduate from the program, is consider critical thinking, collaboration, and you may have noticed all these skills if you've read the framework for 21st century skills. How many people have read the framework for 21st century skills? These are things that you need to bake into your cake, whether you're developing nurses, computer techs, welders, mechanics. And this is why, I know you guys don't want to hear this. I'm a CTE guy too, remember. This is why some of the academic side is absolutely necessary. You can't develop good citizens, you can't develop critical thinking skills on your own. You're not an island. Well, some of it you could. Project-based learning is one of the ways to do that, by the way. You heard it here. All right. Think about this, the dynamic duo of Google and Apple. They are considered to be the top two most innovative companies in the world. And here's the irony. When you think about your potential candidates. Most millennials, not the 30-somethings, but most millennials want to work for these two companies. So if you say most millennials want to work for the two most innovative companies in the world, clearly there's an underlying reason there. They want to be, they have an innovative, burning desire to innovate, create. They also want to get paid a lot of money, which is why. But aside from that, they want to innovate and create. Honestly, if I go spend 4 years in high school, I didn't do this, by the way. I got into West Point because I was a great soldier, not because I was an academic ninja. But the amount of work these students now have to do to get into these top schools, and I'm not just, Google doesn't even recruit from the Ivies and the state. They don't even recruit from those places anymore. They're actually looking at something else, which I'll talk about in a minute. The paradigm is shifting. It's no longer going to be Ivy League schools feeding these two creative institutions. It could come from one of your schools. You could have a student who, I've had a couple of them, like, you want to be a laborer? No. You could light the world on fire. You're so smart. Not that being a laborer is bad, but I'd come back and be a laborer after you've cut your teeth on something a little bit bigger. You want to be a laborer while you develop something? That's fine too. But don't ever let this job stop you from pursuing that desire and that will. Okay. Emotional intelligence is another skill. This is one thing you absolutely, takes about 1 day to read this emotional intelligence book. This was actually Fortune 500 mandatory training. The question before the question. And this is an underlying trend. There was a story in one of my books about the person who's in charge of developing talent at Google, and she talked about the 3 qualities. 3 qualities they look for in a candidate at Google. And all of them can be derived or learned from this book right here, Emotional Intelligence. And this is a classic. How many people here have read Who Moved My Cheese? I know, I just tried to have my 14-year-old son read it. Come on, Connor, just read it. It's going to be awesome. No. So I got in the car and I put it on. We're driving along. Who Moved My Cheese? Audible book. And that's how passionate I feel about this, is that if students read this book and understand and internalize some of it's really lowbrow. You're not talking, it's not like you're teaching the theory of relativity here. Who Moved My Cheese? It actually targets a common behavior that we have to resist change and to just dig in and, this is the way it used to be because this is the way I expected it to be, so this is where I'm going to keep it. Digital portfolios. Man, I got to tell you, all the books I read this summer, they talk about digital portfolios. Here's why they're important. Number one, Google is looking at what you can do with information, not necessarily how much information you have. That's one of the trends. In this digital portfolio, if your students are going through your program, it kind of appeals to you on a bunch of different levels. Number one, you can actually set it up so that each level of achievement inside your program can be an achievement badge, which is, especially if you're teaching 30-somethings, I'm not sure if it'll work. They're still technically millennials too. But these students are focused on achievements, and just like a video game they might be playing, oh, I leveled up. Nope, I leveled up. You can use these achievements inside the digital portfolio. Additionally, you can actually use it as a recruitment tool because there's one called Seesaw that interfaces with social media, and we know the millennials are all about that social media, okay? And what they can do is after they get a certification or they achieve that next level in your program, they share it on social media, and all of a sudden his friends are, oh, what's that? What's that about? It could actually become a viral recruiting tool. But bigger than that is that this is taking over as the resume of the future. They don't want to see what you know, they want to see what you can do. So if I could go back and create a digital portfolio of my 1967 Mustang that built a lot of character in me, I still have it, by the way. I started building it when I was 15 years old, and the amount of character that car provided me in terms of perseverance, overcoming adversity, that to me is if I could document that and an employer could have seen that back in those days, first of all, my history could have changed. I wouldn't want to change it, but opportunities could have been opened up dramatically. So think about creating and setting up a program and evaluate them. It's going to take some evaluation. Some of these programs are still relatively new. I like Seesaw personally. I'm going to actually roll it out this year. But it's not even on like mainstream media. It was in Tony Wagner's books, though. He talks about it a lot. But this is an opportunity for you, for something small, become something big. So your student comes in, they get a digital portfolio, they use it to get a job, and then one of the conversations I had this morning was about, hey, you're looking for a job, you're coming to our program at the community college, and okay, well, let me see your resume. Well, I don't have one. Wow. Okay, so did you expect a job recruiter to come knock on your door? This digital portfolio is out there, and once it's saved out there, it lives out there. Sometimes people will actually go out there and look at your like LinkedIn. It's a version of LinkedIn for millennials, and it's actually going to become the new resume of the future. I wouldn't actually be surprised if LinkedIn got in on that deal somewhere and started to get into some of the high schools and colleges. All right, these are my final thoughts. One word, plastics. Some of you have seen the movie The Graduate. Just kidding. One word nowadays is automation, artificial intelligence. If anything to do, and I got to tell you, I don't actually envy the position that you're in right now. I teach kids to pick things up and put them down. They're always going to need those. It's very difficult to automate a laborer's job. But those of you in the community colleges, you are in a very auspicious place right now. It's a good place to be. I'm going to tell you this. The one thing about your position is that the quickest, whatever of you out there who can turn and develop a program and launch it and have partnerships already in place are going to be the ones that are thriving. And I know that seems like a lot, you're putting a lot of work on me here. I'm not about, come on. But I'm going to tell you, it could be the difference between becoming obsolete or a shining star. I can't even imagine. Like, there's programs in high school, and I'm not going to say them, but there's programs in high school that are becoming obsolete as we speak. I can only imagine, and that's after like 20 years. You guys are going to have you're in a really interesting place. Because as this automation comes, there's going to be a lot of more jobs created as a result of it. In that book, When Robots Do Everything, 2030 and 2040 is going to be the golden opportunities for this. So some of us will be retired by then, it won't matter. But it's going to take a while to get there. And just like The Graduate, you got the advice about plastics, provide you the information about artificial intelligence. So they actually talk about a time. Think about this. So how many people have ever gone to a mechanic on their lunch hour, and they pull in, and you're sitting in a room with 12 other people, and you're all watching the TV that's way too loud, and you're drinking stale coffee? Yeah, they said, okay, think about that. Now imagine you look out the window of wherever you're working, and your car is driving to the mechanic. And it goes to the mechanic, it gets the appointment done, and then drives back and puts itself in the parking space. That's the world that we're going to be living in 30 years. I can't imagine it. I mean, I can imagine it in my head, but I can't imagine my car driving itself to the mechanic. I don't even have, first of all, that's awesome. I hate waiting and sitting in those waiting areas thinking, oh man, this guy's going to kill me. This guy's going to beat me up for, the cars will start to self-diagnose, and you'll be able to understand what it's going to cost before the car drives itself to the mechanic. Interesting stuff, right? It is interesting, but think about it. You're going to be responsible for training some of the people that are going to have to be dealing with these very technologies. That's on you. Of course, I have to provide you with some good raw materials. I'll get right on that. Marketing. Let's talk about marketing. Interesting story. Yeah, that's just, yeah.
I'm one of the planners of this event, and while your presentation is fantastic,
We're out of time.
we're running out of time.
All right. Well, thank you very much for I only had 1 or 2 slides left. Do I have 2 minutes? 2 seconds?
Go for it.
All right. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the impact of education. Think about these names. The guy who invented the Polaroid camera, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. All of these people had to drop out of high school, out of college, to pursue their dream. Yet, think about a 4-year-old. They ask how many questions a day? What does that say? 437 questions a day. So they start off going into the education world asking 437 questions a day. And now they get out, they have to drop out of school to pursue their dreams. What if we actually develop the creativity and innovation of young people instead of forcing it out of them? And we develop curiosity, imagination, creativity, and collaboration. That's the foundation for success in America. Thank you very much for your time.